Okay. Are you surprised by any of the findings in the report?
Well, of course, I hadn't really had a chance to look through the findings in detail. I don't suppose, in one sense, there's any significant issue that jumps out as, oh, I hadn't thought about that. On the other hand, I think what will be interesting, and was interesting to me and probably will be interesting to other people, is the whole range of organisations in society that the advisory group is identifying as people who also need to step forward in this debate and begin to take some leadership. That it isn't just about government, and I think most people do tend to resort to that response, which is because it's the government's job to fix this. But this is not an area that government can, from the top down, fix. We have to involve communities in it, and that very clearly comes through in the report.
What's quite surprising is that, considering sectarianism has been an issue for decades and decades and decades in Scotland, that we're in the position where we're talking about we need an evidence base.
Yeah.
How do you feel that we should take this forward?
Well, it is interesting. There's research into it is historical research rather than current work being done. And that is a problem, because it's difficult to develop a policy response when you actually don't have significant evidence to support the moves that you might make. So one of the things that's coming out of this is that we are instructing some very significant pieces of research. One will be an across Scotland piece of work on perceptions of sectarianism and people's understanding of it, and so we will get a very clear view of how people in Scotland do think about this. The other thing is a piece of qualitative research, which is going to be about people's experiences of sectarianism much more directly. It is surprising that those things really haven't been done, but we are going to make sure that they are done. I think most people will be very interested in the results of those pieces of research.
Now, the report also talks about the important role that education has in tackling sectarian attitudes. Do we need to further embed this into the curriculum?
Well, I think Education Scotland is aware that this is an issue that does need to be tackled. We can't run away from it, because it's a problem in society in Scotland today. So there is no point behaving as if it's not. Now, that is one of the areas where possibly there's a kind of geographical difference in the perceptions of it. And you will go to some parts of Scotland where they will really not feel that that's necessarily a useful thing to do. Other parts of Scotland where they will genuinely want to be doing that very proactively. I suppose what I would be doing is saying to everybody in Scotland, all the education authorities, look, you do need to look at this quite seriously, because there are some very easy assumptions being made about sectarianism in Scotland, and we think they should be questioned. And education has an important role to play in that. And as a fundamental feature of current Scottish life and society, our children do need to be aware of it, educated about it, understand how we've got to where we've got to at the moment, but know that it's not a place we want Scotland to be in the future.
So are you saying that you would like to see every single education authority dealing with this in a similar way across the board?
Well, no, I don't think you could deal with it in a similar way. I don't think you can possibly impose any across-the-board way of doing it. What I do hope is that education authorities will all look carefully at this issue and consider how best they might deal with it in their area, given their own area's different history and different demography and different social attitudes. So it's more about asking educational authorities just to have a look at this. And I know that the education ministerial team are aware of this issue.
On the role of football clubs, how much more of a role do they need to take? I mean, that was something that was obviously flagged up.
Yeah, I'll need to look quite closely at that, because again, it's not really asking government to do anything in respect of football, taking any further action. It's really asking football at club level, at all club level, including, as I understand it, the quite junior clubs, to be conscious of this, to think about how they can make changes that will help to provide real leadership and up through to the top clubs, but also into the governing bodies, and the issue of how that whole thing is handled. It is really a serious issue. Just as we ask football to help, the football authorities across the board to help with the issue of racism, to help with the issue of homophobia in Scotland, they do need to also be actively helping in the issue of sectarianism as well.
Do you think there's been a reluctance amongst football bodies and governing bodies and football clubs themselves to take this forward?
Well, I don't know that I would set football aside from other parts of society. What I thought was interesting about what Duncan Morrow said, that the attitudes and treatment of this issue in Scotland have tended to veer from silence to sensationalism. And what the advisory group are trying to get us into a place is where, you're looking at a middle road so that the debate can be had in a constructive way, but not swept under the carpet, but neither treated as if it was sensationalist. And I think that applies not just to football, but right across the board in Scotland.
Now, how key will the Action on Sectarian website be as we take this forward?
Well, I think the Action on Sectarianism website can only grow in importance in terms of this whole debate, because it is going to be a way in which people will access information, but also be able to be interactive about it. And I know that the website is already putting up evidence of people's actual experiences. And it may very well be, particularly when we begin to set out to do the research or instruct the research, that Action on Sectarianism may want to have a look at whether or not they can be part of that as well. So I think the website is very important in that regard. We've never had a website like that before in Scotland. It is about creating a safe space for people to have this discussion in a moderate and sensible way.
Great. Thank you very much.